are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Brad Heiser. I'm with Customer Driven Technologies. Hopefully you guys are here to see the detailing and Creo Parametric 2 webcasts that we do. Every Thursday we throw out one of these, and if you haven't been on one of these before, the way that the interface works, and you'll see it in the picture here, that you can minimize the UI by clicking the little button to move it to the right side. If you prefer to be on a telephone instead of on your mic or speakers on your computer, you can flip over to the telephone. But if you're hearing me now, you're probably listening to me on your mic and speakers, or you've already done that. Throughout the webinar, you can ask questions at any time. We will save the questions for the end. If it's a very complicated question, feel free to go ahead and type it in, and then we can get back to you via email, or you can, at the end, you'll have our contact information where you can just email us directly. But we'll get to most of the questions, if not all of the questions, at the end of the webinar. So a little bit about CDT and myself. I'm an applications engineer for Customer Driven Technologies. We're based out of here in St. Louis. We have engineers all over the entire United States. We are a child corporation of Barry-Wehmiller and Associates, a very large engineering services company. And we've been with them for just over a year, just about almost a year now. We have what CDT does as a business is we are a value-added reseller of PTC products, whether that's Windchill, Creo, or ProEngineer, MathCAD, or ArborText. So if you have any dealings with those, we can help you out with those. But what a reseller does is we sell the software, we help service the software. We do training, service, and support. So we have several engineers throughout the United States. One of which being myself here in St. Louis. We've got one in Kansas City, one in Texas, and we've just recently picked up a few more on the East Coast. We have currently 6 training centers: Kansas City, Arlington, Texas, Dallas, St. Louis, Missouri, Cinnaminson, New Jersey, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Orlando, Florida. So if you have any need for new software, or you're having issues with the existing software, we're more than happy to help you out with that. One thing to note is since we do training, one thing that sets us apart from a lot of our competitors is that we do training with only classes with 1 or 2 students. Obviously we prefer for them to be full, but if you're wanting to take a class and you don't see it out there on the schedule, or you don't see anything out there, there's something specifically maybe off the wall or a customized course that you're looking for, feel free to shoot our contact Rosalinda. Her contact info is on the last slide. An email, and we can take care of that for you. Also, we have our training up on our website, cdtplm.com/training. A lot of our training classes are up there, but we're more than happy to accommodate you in any of your needs. And at this time, we've got a few just brief poll questions we want to throw up just so we can help test the waters out and make sure that we're giving webinars that are valid to the users that are watching them. So Sarah, if you would at this point, go ahead and throw up those poll questions and let me know when they're done.
Sure thing. Here we go. Here's the first one. Second one. Give it a couple more seconds. Okay. Okay, back to you.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And again, we appreciate you doing that. That helps us to make sure we're customizing things for what people actually want to see. So what we're going to talk about today is detailing in Creo 2. It's going to be mostly a hands-on demonstration of the software, so don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with too many slides. We get a lot of feedback saying in most cases that more slides just cause people to fall asleep, especially over their lunch break. But I'm going to break it up into a couple of different little categories. One being just basics. I'll show you the new interface. That's going to be mostly geared towards new users, which most of the detailing stuff is geared towards new users. And then I'm going to highlight two specific good modeling practices. One, using model dimensions and using templates, and then tips and questions and answers at the end. So model dimensions, we always want to try to have users use as many model dimensions as possible. We want to create your models using those dimensions, so that way it simplifies your drawing creation and simplifies updating and making changes in the future. And I'll show you a couple of examples of exactly what I mean by that. Now, I'm not saying in all cases you have to use model dimensions. Sometimes we know that it's not necessarily time efficient to use 100% model dimensions, so draft dimensions are still okay. But I'll show you a couple of items where that will maybe cost you a little bit of efficiency. Also, this is one of my big things I always harp on, because I note that a lot of people using templates, a lot of people don't know what templates technically are, and even though they're using templates, they're not using them to their full potential. So, like I said, most people assume that when I say use a template, they're thinking, okay, the C-sized thing that puts the border on and puts the title block in, which a template does that, but templates don't just apply formats. The underlying parts of the sheet are what we call the format. But templates also allow us to specify the position of views, to configure those views with specific types of things, such as showing dimensions, creating snap lines. I can automatically place notes and symbols and tables onto a drawing. And the one that most people already know about, using or adding drawing formats. So let me flip over to the software, and we'll start off with the more of the basic side of detailing. I'm not going to go into too much on the new interface, assuming, looking at the poll, a lot of people are already running Creo 2. If you want to get the good information on what's new in Creo 2, we've got a couple other webcasts that we've recorded on our YouTube page, so feel free to browse through those later. But I've got my ribbon interface. So let's just open up a drawing. So let's just grab just a generic drawing I've got in here. And you'll notice when I pull up a drawing, my ribbon changes to match the types of things I would do when I'm creating a drawing. They typically flow pretty good, and this is my own personal opinion. From left to right, they flow kind of in the way that I use that I create drawings. Under my Layout tab, I've got the things such as creating new sheets and sheet setup, putting different drawing models in, all of my drawing views such as general, projection, detailed, and auxiliary views. Under my Table tab, I've got all of my table information, including bill of material balloons. I know a lot of people, I see a lot of, especially new users, digging around under annotations, looking for where to put the bomb balloons in. And those are located under the tables. Then under the Annotate tab, we've got all of our annotation information, whether that be notes or surface finish or symbols or most commonly used dimensions, and also geometric tolerances. Then we've got things like sketch tools, legacy migration tools, analysis tools, and those other sorts of things. Note that in the upgrade from Wildfire 5 to Creo, there used to be a Publish tab over here that would have all of our PDF creation and our printing and exporting things. That's all going to be located under the File menu now, under Print or under Save As. So here's where we've got Save a Copy or Export. If I click Export, then I've got all of my different options for creating my export. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is just basic how to create a drawing. So let's close this guy, and that was a good drawing, but let's actually create a new drawing of basically that same piston. I'm going to title this one just Piston 1, and I'm going to uncheck Use Default Template and click OK. Then I'm going to check that I want to use the template, and in this case I'm going to browse over to a location where I actually have a template, which in this case should be in this folder here. And this is not exactly the best template that I would necessarily use in all cases, but it's something real simple. Note I am getting prompted for the parameter drawn by I'm going to type in my name, V. Heiser, and I get a little error. We'll talk about that error in a little bit later when we talk about our templates. But notice that the template did a couple of things for me. It automatically created several different drawing views, one of which being that 3D view that doesn't technically exist in this model. It automatically put a lot of dimensions on for me and did a lot of things. In this case, I probably actually didn't want for it to do, but it did speed up the placement of several of my dimensions. I want to show you a couple of things here. I'm going to create a new sheet, and we're going to just basically start from scratch. If I were not using a template, if I were just starting from a blank slate, if I were wanting to just place all of my views in manually and create all my tables and all of my notes manually, this is what I would see. Basically, I would get just a format. It would not have anything else associated with it. It would just be my title block and my border. So I would come in at this point, and one thing that is kind of cool to note is that in Creo and in Wildfire 5 before, we have a drawing tree over on the left side that's going to help us do a lot of things more quickly and easily. So if you're coming from Wildfire 4 or previous, this stuff here is going to look a little odd to you, and some of the annotation placement is going to be odd as well. But I'm going to start by placing a general view, so I can either do that by clicking the general button here or by right-clicking in the graphics window and selecting Insert General View. And I'm going to place it, we'll say, right about here. And we'll turn that into a front view. And note that because of the settings of my sheet, this came in as shaded. I could come in at this point and turn this into a not follow environment, but I want to do a no hidden, and click Apply. So I've got one view in. Typically after that you would come in and put in your other views. Projection views would be added by either clicking the button, picking projection, or I can start by clicking the projection button and it'll automatically pick the last view that I had created and then placed right where I clicked. Or I can right click in the graphics window, make sure I've got a view selected first, right click, insert projection view. So speaking of those right mouse click buttons there, let's toggle this over to no hidden. Speaking of the right mouse click buttons, you'll notice when I right click I see several layout types of things. When I am in the drawing or in the layout tab, I see layout types of things. When I go to the table tab and right click, you'll see I have a lot of other table types of things, update tables. Annotates will give me annotation options such as let's say geometric tolerance or cleanup dimensions. Now you'll note that a lot of the most frequently used ones such as insert general view, those are going to be there regardless of which tab I've got selected because they're most commonly used even depending on the different tabs. Occasionally you might notice, and I'll flip back over to the first tab here, that sometimes in previous versions I might try to pick an annotation in some date releases, Wildfire 5 specifically, and I wouldn't be able to actually select it unless I was in my Annotate tab. So if I'm in my Layout tab, I wouldn't be able to select it. And I would have to either click over manually to the Annotate tab or to hold down the Alt key. Well, you'll notice in Creo 2, that issue's been resolved. I know I got lots of complaints about that, especially in my intro classes that I teach. People sitting here for 5 minutes trying to figure out why they can't pick an annotation. Well, now you'll note that no matter which tab I've got selected, I will be able to pick an annotation without having to hold down the Alt key. So I've got my two projection views here. I want to go in and maybe insert another general view, just a default kind of 3D view there. So we'll grab 3D, and I've got another general view there. Note that the projection views remain locked to the original view, so I can't slide it up and down. I can only slide it closer or farther away from my parent view. When I move the parent view left and right and up and down, the child views move with it. That's, again, pretty basic stuff, pretty beginner type stuff. But one thing that we don't really cover in the intro class is that I have the ability to break that link. So let's say that I did want to move this in a way that it was no longer tied to being horizontal from this view. I can pick this view, right-click go to Properties, and under the View Type section, I can come in and actually change it from a projection view to just another general view. And when I click Apply, you'll notice at this point I can come in and change its orientation. It's going to keep the orientation it was in by default. And note now I can grab this view and I can move it up and down and left and right. Well, at any point I want to go back to that, what it was before, I can also go back to my Properties and change it from a general view back to a projection view. Or maybe I had some other view that I want to turn into a projection view. Then when I do this, it's going to ask me, do I want to specify my parent view? And I want to put my parent view in there. And now notice it snapped it back to horizontal from the parent view. And again, now it's tied to the parent view again. The way we put in our cross-section views is the same as it was before, where I pick the view, right-click Properties, and I'm going to go to the Sections category and turn on my 2D cross-section. And this is just a good general note here. Notice how I've got two options here, A and B. The A has the green check mark next to it. The B has the red X. A being a view that is valid to show from this current view orientation. If I were to change this to B and click Apply, you'll notice it doesn't really make any sense to cut the part at this angle from this view. So it helps you out just a little bit, being able to look through and see to see those things. Now, a lot of times we get simple questions, that I try not to make these, completely basic. If this isn't going to be straight out of the intro class or straight out of the detailing class. We have two methods for putting arrows on. I found a lot of people don't know this. One method is to just scroll to the right and pick where here it says Arrow Display and select which view I want the arrows to be on. And it puts arrows on that view. The other way is to actually cancel out of this and to pick a view. Let's say I'll pick this view this time, and right-click, pick this view, right-click, Add Arrows, and then select the view I want to add the arrows to. So if you've noticed that, oops, I forgot to put my arrows in when I defined my cross-section cut, note that I can actually put those on without having to go back into the properties, just by right-clicking on the view. Notice if I say Add Arrows and pick this view, I'm going to have to remove those arrows first. Delete, and pick it again, right-click, Add Arrows to move them up to here. So that's basic workflow, how to put general views in. Note that, let's go back to our drawing tree and talk about this for a little bit. Note that right now I've got 4 things showing in my drawing tree. I've got New View 5, New View 8, Top 6, and Right 7. If I had used a template to create these, you'll notice, I go back to Sheet 1 to show you the one that was actually created with a template. I've got named views they were actually named at the template level. So I've got my front view, my right projection view, my plan view in this case, and this other view is not actually tied to anything. We'll go ahead and delete that one off of there. So note that that's another thing that the template did for me. It actually renamed my views for me. But notice in here I've got nothing else showing in my drawing tree. If I go over to my Table tab, you'll notice I get a table section that pops up, showing Table 1 and Table 2, those tables being my title block. Then I toggle over to Sheet 2, and you'll notice I have a Table 3 and a Table 4 that show on Sheet 2. When I go over to my Annotate tab, in this case, I'll go back to Sheet 1. I go over to my Annotate tab, and you'll notice I have several different things that are gonna show underneath each of the specific views. So let's say under the front view, for example, I've got annotations and snapline categories. The snapline category allows me to come in. Let's say if I don't like my snaplines, I can come in and grab these, hold down Shift, and select them all, and delete all of the snaplines all in one fluid motion. Then I've got my annotation tab, which shows me all of the different annotations that have been added in automatically. Let's go over to, I've got another good example of how to use the annotation. So let me flip over and open up another model here. So I've got, in this case, a cylinder bracket that we're going to add annotations to. In Wildfire 4 and previous versions, I would have a show model annotations tool that would allow me to show and erase model annotations. Because of the new addition of the drawing tree, which technically isn't new anymore, this came out in Wildfire 5, then I'm going to have the way to remove dimensions is not going to be under my show model annotations box, and it's actually going to look completely different. When I open this, you'll see I've got 6 tabs across the top. Dimensions, geometric tolerances, notes, surface finish, symbols, and datums. So when I want to show any one of those features, before I could say I want to show all the dimensions and all of the datums on the front view and pick the front view and it would show, and then select ones to keep, select ones to remove. That was very efficient. It worked well. However, I can tell you from experience, a lot of new users really struggled with that to the point where they didn't use it. The tool really is meant to work, pretty simple. So they've kind of simplified it a little bit, taken away a little functionality, but the functionality they took away is not that hard to use. The workaround is not really that hard. The new methodology. So note when I pick dimensions and I pick, let's say for example, the front view, it's going to show me all of the dimensions that are currently available to be shown in the front view. As I can then come in and pick the ones that I want to keep, or I could come in here and actually mouse over them in the table and check the boxes of the ones that I want to keep. So let's say for example, I wanted to keep this 19 millimeter dimension here. I can actually scroll through until I find the correct dimension, and then pick it. Let's say I want to get this 18. I want this also. I can 19. This R6. This R22, and then when I click Apply, it takes those dimensions and it applies them to the drawing, and it takes them off of this list. So now, if you notice over here under Annotations, those 6 dimensions I selected are now associated with that front view. Now when I click another view, it's going to show me all of the dimensions that are able to be shown on that view, minus the ones that I've already selected. So once I select them and I put them on the sheet, they're no longer available to be placed somewhere else. That allows us to quickly place things, and once I start placing them, I typically, good working practice is never to show a dimension twice on one sheet. In 2 different views, you always want to only show it once. Otherwise, you're gonna clutter up your drawing sheet with many dimensions that are not necessary. Note that if I want to pick I want to put the axes in, I want to put this axis through the center hole here. I'm going to go over to my axis group, and I'm going to pick this front view, and it'll show me all of the axes I can get from this view. I'm going to manually click on the one that I want to keep, and this time I'm going to click OK to go ahead and close my box. You'll notice now again, I've got my annotation tab selected, showing me that I've got my annotations and my datums. I've got the one model datum there. I'm going to come in and I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to just drag it up. This is something I found a lot of users are not familiar with as well, just the ability to grab and drag axes, which is kind of surprising if you ask me. But that allows me then to come in and put a note in for a center line, or do something simple, and quick, and easy that way. So let's take a little slight detour, and you're probably asking, well, why would you use draft dimensions versus model dimensions? It's in most cases it's easier for me just to come in and say I want to place a dimension from here to here, and place it horizontal. And I want to come in, I want to place this dimension here. Yeah, I've got that 18 there, but maybe it was faster and easier for me just to place my dimension here. Well, note when I do this, I lose a little bit of something. I technically have a good dimension that has the parametric ties to the geometry, but let's say for example I need to make a design change. If I did draft dimensions and I want to change this from 18 to 20, I have to manually come in and open up the part and go find whatever extrude that was, and then go in and fix it there. Whereas over here, and if I pick this dimension, you'll notice my nominal value is grayed out. I can't change it. However, when I use model dimensions, when I edit the properties of this, you'll notice in this case my nominal value is not grayed out. I can actually change it right here to 20. And then when I click OK and I regenerate my model, you'll see that the geometry did actually change, and the draft dimension, of course, because it is tied to the geometry, did update as well. So that allows me to change something right here on the drawing without having to go into another window or into another model. Now that being said, this is very powerful. It is also very dangerous. If you have users that, oh, I need to make one drawing that looks exactly like this, but I need this to be 30, and he comes in and changes this to 30, then guess what? When I regenerate this, everywhere where this part is used, every single drawing that, not only every drawing of this part, but every assembly that this part is in changes. Now, I'm not creating, a one-off variant when I do this. It is actually changing the model. So that parametric tie is what gives Pro E its strength. It's what also makes us have to be very careful with how we use it. So one other thing, let me point out something in the drawing tree over here. If you notice under annotations, I'm going to expand out here. You'll notice I've got, and I'll actually zoom in, I've got my model annotations. These come from the model. They have a symbol next to them, a D1 underneath witness and leader lines there, and a D0 parameter. If I go in under this right view under annotations, these are draft dimensions I put in, and you'll notice in this case it says draft dimension. It doesn't show the D1 underneath the witness lines and the leaders there. And the parameter is AD55 in this case instead of D5 or D6 or what have you. So I can quickly and easily tell in multiple ways just by glancing what type of dimensions these are. Note that if I want to actually delete something from the sheet, and this is another thing that trips up people, if I pick, let's say, model D0 here, and I right-click on it, you'll notice I have two options, erase and delete. Erase takes it off the sheet. And then I say, for example, I want to come in and show model annotations on the top view here, and I'm looking for that 66 millimeter width, and I don't see it. And I'm like, well, I erased it from the other view. Well, if I notice, it's still here. It's just hidden. So erase is the equivalent of hide. Unerase is the equivalent of unhide. If I delete it, then now I have the ability to come in and show it in this other view. So let's say I'm going to pick my top view here, and now I've got my 66 millimeter width. Now the easier way to do this for us seasoned veterans is to actually pick the dimension, right-click, and say I want to move item to view, and pick the new view, and then it moves it to the other view automatically for me. One thing that I say they have changed in Creo that's a little different from the previous versions is that when I want to, let's put in this R6 dimension, when I want to, let's say, for example, move this to the other side, in Wildfire 5 and previous versions, I could just grab, there was a dragger here, I could just drag it over to the other side. However, in Creo, I'm going to be forced to right-click on it and flip text. That moves it over to the other side. Again, right-click, flip text. Also, when I'm moving dimensions around and dragging them up and down, I've got a lot of the same drag handle type features as before, but you'll notice that the drag handle that was on the top for skewing my dimension is no longer there, which I usually do a poll, and most people don't use that. But if you do use it, if I right-click and pick Skew Dimension, now I have the ability to skew my dimension. Like I said, most people don't use that functionality, but it has frustrated a couple of my users. So let's go into kind of another benefit of using model dimensions, good drafting principles. I'm going to pull up another part that I've got in this folder, this crankshaft.prt. And in this part, it was drafted, it was created kind of in a way that a lot of people would find to be a little bit confusing. And this is going to set this model up really well to use good model dimensions. Because one of the dimensions that I want to show on my drawing, and if I open up, there's a drawing that has this in here. If I go to the drawing here, I'll notice that I've got the 62 millimeter overall length dimension. That's a dimension that's important to me, so I want to make sure when I create this part that I do use that dimension to create the part. Well, the way that they did that was if we go up here to the beginning, they started with an extrude, the overall 62 millimeter extrude, and then they built this extrude 2. If you'll notice, if I turn on the planes here, they both share the same starting plane. So even though A lot of people would model this as an extrude and then put the extrude on the face of the other extrude. They do both start from the same front plane there. And then they came in and they put in this feature and they put in the hole in the intake cut here. But then when they came back to put these other features in, like most people would probably do, they would make their base extrusion this long and then add features to it. They actually came in and cut material back to create a model that is robust, that allows this relatively easily to be dimensioned on the drawing. So these dimensions are all, in this case, draft dimensions, every single one of them. None of them were created using, or they're all, I'm sorry, I misspoke. They're all model dimensions. They all come from the model. None of them are draft dimensions because the model was set up for easy drawing creation. And I would say, just from my own personal experience, in the years I've been using Pro E, I spend probably 60 to 75% of my time not actually making the models, but detailing the drawings of the models. Drawing detailing is where most people, I would say, spend a lot of their time. So what can we do to help speed this up? Again, like I mentioned before, we want to make sure that we use templates. So the templates that we use are going to do a lot of things for us. So you're probably wondering, well, how do I create templates? And I'm going to open up a couple of templates here. Let's just look at an existing template. This template C-sized. And you'll notice in here that I've got, because there's no part, actually, no model associated with this template, I've got a couple of things here. These little view placeholders showing where my different views are going to be. And I'm going to go over under my tools and I'm going to activate template mode here. And that's going to show me a completely different ribbon. So if under drawing mode, my layout has things like inserting general views and drawing models, but if I go to template mode, you'll notice my layout has a template view section. Maybe we'll go ahead and just add another sheet here. And I'm taking a couple shortcuts. I'm not putting all the parameters in like I probably should. But I'm going to create a template view. And we're going to name this guy front. And I want to use the view orientation front. Now note, I will want to name it exactly the same as the view orientations in my models. Like you noticed before, that template that I used to create, one of the drawings earlier, had an orientation labeled 3D. However, the part, or I think it was maybe even 3D-1. But the part itself did not actually have an orientation named that. So when I used the template to create that, it actually caused it to fail. Now that being said, it was pretty easy to delete the failed view and manually put another one in. But you want to make sure that I do use the same terminology that you use on your starting templates for your parts. So when I put this in, the first one always has to be a general view. I can't put a first one in as a projection view. I might be able in the workflow, but I'll have to have a general view to be projected from. And let me just go through the list of options here. If I'm using combination states, here I'll specify that information there. I want to put in the orientation of front, simplified reps, and if I've got an explode state or a cross section I want to automatically have created on the front view, then I'll put that in there. Under the scale section, I can specify a custom scale, whatever, not the default scale of the sheet, but whatever a custom scale for one specific view. If you use process steps, that's there. Model display. Follow environment wireframe, hidden lines. In this case, I want to say I want all of my drawings always to be no hidden. Tangent edge display, we're going to do tangent solid. Snap lines, I don't want to put snap lines on. Dimensions, if you like to automatically show your dimensions, then this is where you will do that. You want to make sure that you'll have those options turned on in your drawing template. Now that being said, I remember back in the good old days of Wildfire, probably 3 or so, I tried to do this and I created a template showing all of my dimensions, and as you guys can probably already predict, it failed miserably. Things just didn't work out well. I will say they work better now. As far as cleaning up dimensions, I can automatically put the cleanup of the dimensions in and even set display priorities. So I can say, for example, I want the bulk of the dimensions to pop on to my front. In this case, I've got the other views from the other sheet. But I can set the priority. So most of the dimensions will be on the front view, and most of them will be on the top view. And if I have an assembly, I can actually add balloons here as well. So I'm going to say yes for dimensions, and then I'm going to click the button here. It says Place View. And then I'm going to select probably right about here to place my view. And then I'm going to click New to create another view. In this case, I'm going to say Right, because this is going to be my right view, and then I'm going to set this as a projection view. And notice that I have an option to pick where I want that to be projected from. So I want to pick my front view there. Those other views are the ones that are showing on my other sheet there. And just like before, view states, model display, I'm going to say, again, no hidden, tangent edge display, dimensions. I don't want to show dimensions on this one. And I'm going to place the view. And I usually get asked this, do I have to make sure that it's snapped exactly perfectly horizontal? No, you don't. You just have to get it somewhat close. Now, this position up here is not close to roughly horizontal, but if I get it somewhere right about here, that'll give me something that'll work. And then place my view there, and, excuse me, at this point, go back into my template view, and I can create all the other views I might want to put on here. Maybe, for example, I want to put another general view. We'll call this one 3D, and we'll say that I do have an orientation labeled 3D. And I want to place this one. This one I want to be a smaller scale, so instead of being the 1 scale, I want it to be 0.75. And I want this to be shaded with edges. And then I'll place the view right here. Okay, so that's the basic part of creating views. At this point, I would also go in and put in all of my default notes, all of my tables. And the reason I'm big on this is because the first 5 years of my Pro E usage, nobody really explained what templates were to me, and I spent a very long time creating. For 5 years, every drawing I created, I manually came in and put in my views, which actually I think the template that our default template at that company had these 2 views, so I manually came in and put in 2 more views. I manually put in the revision table on every single drawing I ever created. I manually came in and put in 2 notes, one of them up in the top left corner and one in the bottom. And I got so good at it, I could place the note using, just using the absolute coordinates of the sheet, because I just had that memorized where exactly those notes needed to go. Now that being said, that's 5 years. I can't tell you how many hundreds, if not thousands of, probably thousands of drawings I did, where a simple template would have saved me, hours and hours and hours of my life of making sure that all the tables were aligned properly. So you'll want to do that all at the template level. You don't want to do that after the fact. If you notice yourself doing the same thing to every single drawing you create, put that information in the template, which then will allow you to quickly and easily create your drawings. Okay, so let me take another step back. So hopefully you guys understand the value of using templates. Hopefully you didn't get too discouraged by my ranting and raving there. So one thing that I want to show this, and let's get into some of the kind of the tricks and the tips, of some other cool little things. Here's something that I learned the hard way again when I was working all of this out. I'm going to show you first. I've got this really simple mechanism. And I whipped this up in 10 minutes or so. So yes, it's a robot arm, but no, it's not very technically accurate. It's somewhat similar to one I used in my robotics class in college. It moves this way. This pivots around. This pivots around. I've got a gripper here that opens and closes as well. When I create this mechanism, I'm likely, when I show the drawing of it, I'm going to want to show it in a few different states. One of which is going to be a state of it, it collapsed down as far as possible, and one of them is going to be a state of it open and as large as possible. And you can see just from messing around with this, even using my drag components, I'm having a little bit of a difficulty getting it to exactly the right position that I want this to be in. What we're going to do is we're going to create snapshots. Now I've already created 2, max and min, And these are just positional bookmarks, if you will. You know, most people hear snapshots and they think, I'm going to create a JPEG that I'm going to email, you know, Bob over in marketing of this robot arm that I've just created, which that's not really what this is for. This is really just a positional bookmark of my assembly. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, well, that's mechanism design. What in the world does this have to do with detailing? Well, quite simply, there's an option inside the snapshots here. If you notice this button here, it says Make Selected Snapshot Available in Drawings. And when I do that, let's just create one more snapshot. We'll bring it over here to a position right about here or so, and we'll create a new one. We'll just lay that one snapshot 1. Notice when I click this button, it makes that snapshot available in the drawing, so that now I can refer to that. And I have a lot of people ask me, okay, well, how do I actually refer to that in the drawing? So let me open up. I've got a quick little drawing I created here, just really simple. And I'm going to put in, let's see, under sheet 1, I've got 3 views here. And you're noticing, hey, this is all kind of crazy. I've got a bunch of things here, and it's really not very organized. And if I go back to my assembly and I drag this guy around here a little more, and I regenerate, and I go back to my drawing again, you'll notice, hey, it moved again. Now everything moved around. Well, the way I'm going to fix that and prevent that from happening is I'm going to go in and do this. I'm going to pick my view, and I'm going to go to my properties. And of course, I did have to create my snapshots beforehand before I do this for this to work well. And I'm going to go under my view states. I'm going to check the box that says Explode Components in View. And you're probably wondering, why in the world am I creating an exploded view? Well, this is where we pick those snapshots. So I go in now and I pick, let's say, for example, that max position snapshot and click Apply. You'll notice, hey, now this snapped to the max position. Now I'm going to go do the same with this one up here. Properties, View States, Explode Components in View, Max, Apply. Then I'm going to come over to this one over here, and I'm going to edit the properties of this. I'm going to go to View States, and I'm going to set this one, Explode Components in View, I'm going to set this one to Min. And what this allows me real quickly and easily to do is show that robot arm in 2 configurations, 2 positions. You know, the maximum fully extended and open position, and then the minimum and closed gripper position. So that I know when I first started doing this, I tried doing all kinds of things using multiple family tables, you know, with different constraint sets that were suppressed out in certain instances of the family table, and it got, as you can imagine, pretty hairy. And then I stumbled across the snapshots and the ability to use those in drawings, and that really changed the way I design you know, robotics. And then let's say I want to, another little side note here, I want to take these 2 views and put them side by side. Right now they're not related to one another at all, but I want to actually constrain them so that they are related to each other. So I'm going to pick this view on the right and go to the properties of this, and under alignment I'm going to tell it I want to align this to another view, and I want to align it to this view over here. Now if I leave this set to horizontal at view origin and click apply, it'll just take the center of each view and align it with the center of each view. But in this case, because I'm going to maybe measure the height differences between the 2, I'm going to go in and say, point on this view, I want to pick this baseline, and the point on the other view, I'm going to pick this baseline over here. And when I click apply, notice how it snaps it down there. And just like a projection view now, I can slide it closer and farther away, but I can't slide it up and down. Now when I move this one, it'll move with it. So it's kind of like a projection view, just in 2 different states. It's not a projection view, it's just aligned. And then I could do things like, you know, this is not necessarily good working practice, but say what my total throw is from this component to this component here, my overall height. I guess it's not going to let me do that. Let's pretend that it did for a second. But then that allows me real quickly and easily to create those multiple states. Let's go back over to another example here. I've got one thing that I found, and this is going to be really quick, to be really, really cool about creating bills of materials in Creo. Is that, you know, if you remember from Wildfire 5 and previous versions, I would go in and I would start by creating a bill of material balloon, and then I would have to pick the repeat region. I'd have to specify lots of different things, and for a new user it was really complicated, and until you'd done it 2 or 3 times it was really confusing as well. The menu manager is not necessarily the most fun thing to work with in Pro and in Creo. However, in Creo 2 now, balloons are going to be as simple as picking create balloons all, and it will pick the entire sheet for me. And in this case I do have technically a couple of different things I had on the sheet earlier, so I will have to pick which repeat region. But if I've only got one repeat region, I've only got one exploded view, I just have to pick all. Well, you're probably wondering, well, I need to go in and actually change these to split quantity balloons, because we use split quantity balloons. How am I going to do that? So if I pick the table, and again, this is where the drawing tree comes in really handy. I've just, from experience, just hover in the right location there, or I can click over here and right-click Properties to select the table there as well. And I go into the Bomb Balloons tab, and I change from Simple Circle to Quantity Split Circle. You'll notice they all change over. A lot of the things that were difficult to do as far as menu managers before, if you notice down here, I've got part number 3, quantity 5. 2 of them are down here, 3 of them are up there. I want to move a balloon up there. That was always been difficult to do before, but now it's going to be as simple as I pick my balloon, and I pick that I want to split my balloons. And how many do I want to split off? I want to split 2 off. And then I want to place the other balloon up here. So I click where I want to place it, and I place it right there. And you're probably saying, well, hey, there's 3 up there, you silly guy. Yeah, absolutely. That's the point. I'm going to show you how to redistribute quantity as well. So I come in and I click redistribute quantity, pick a balloon, and say I want to move 1, quantity 1, hit enter. Where I want to move it to, I click up here, and it moves. Notice it changed 3, 2, and 3, 3. So it real simply and easily moved things over. Much simpler, much easier than it's ever been before. You'll find that throughout Creo 2, most everything has gotten just those little tiny overhauls like that. So we're getting to the point where every little thing is slightly faster, and overall everything is much, much faster. Let's see. So we did snapshots, we did dimensions, templates. I also want to show you guys something else that's kind of neat, I guess. One of the only real uses that not that layers are not useful, but one of the only times I regularly use layers is when I use them in the following way. So I'm going to open up this piston drawing from earlier, and I have a lot of dimensions on here. This is a complicated drawing. I want to quickly and easily hide all of the dimensions out of this entire sheet. Now you're probably saying, oh yeah, hey, we learned from about the drawing tree earlier. I can come in and I can expand this guy out. I can select these dimensions here. Then I can come down here and hold, let's see, expand this out and grab these other annotations down here. And you can see right away that that's going to get really complicated and not so much fun. Let's flip over to our layer tree. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to label it dimensions. And I'm going to include all the dimensions by just dragging a box around my entire sheet. So I set my smart filter to dimension, and I drag a box around the entire sheet. Notice it adds every dimension on the entire drawing to that layer. When I click OK, when I want to hide out those dimensions now, I can right-click on that layer and hide that layer, and now that's cleaned up my drawing quite a bit. And as far as layers, you can also go in and use, that's a basic layer with no rule. If I want to go in and actually create this layer using rules that automatically pulls all my dimensions in, that's better, because then in the future I can add more dimensions to it, and they'll automatically be added to my dimensions layer. I can also do, let's say we'll create another layer here. Actually, we can do this one kind of semi-automatically. I'm going to hit Control F to start my Find tool, and I'm going to look for Note. When I click Find now, it's going to find all of the notes in the entire sheet. So I want to grab all of these notes and move those across the other side there, and I want to, under my Options tab here, I want to save this query. And it's going to prompt me, what do I want to save this query as? I'm going to label it Notes and click OK. And now notice when I close this Find tool out, it automatically created a Notes layer for me. When I go in and edit the properties of this layer, you'll notice that there's all my contents, but that's because of the rule that was created. And if you've never used layers with rules, look into it. We don't have enough time left, unfortunately, to go over how to create rules, but that's really the thing that makes layers very useful. Now note that when I did this, it did actually grab all of the notes in the title block as well, so I need to go through. If I was actually going to use this to hide these out, I would actually have to go through and find, let's see, it should be ID 9 and all the way down to ID 22 and actually remove these, remove item, yes, and then now when I hide my layer, you'll see that it hid all of the notes except the ones in the title block. In that case, I actually missed a couple, so it did remove a couple from the title block there. But that, like I said, that is really the only way that I use layers on a regular basis. Now, I do use them occasionally for creating custom training examples and that sort of thing to hide out datum features. But for the most part, this allows them to be used a little more like people are kind of used to the terminology of layers, like, let's say, for example, in AutoCAD. And that is really, there were a couple other things if we had time I was going to show you, but we're at 12:50. We always like to leave about 10 minutes or so at the end for questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and type them into your into the browser now. And I'm seeing one question here so far. Would the slideshow be available after the show? If you would like the PowerPoint, the PowerPoint's relatively not a lot of information in there. But if you would like to have the actual video of this, we actually record these and put them on YouTube. So feel free to ask any questions at this time, or if you want to type it in, or if you want to verbally ask, you can click the little. There should be a raise hand icon on your interface, and if you click that, then I can unmute you, and then you can ask the question verbally as well if you'd prefer. I see one other question here. Let me expand this guy out. Okay, so I'm getting quite a few questions here. Let's see. For whatever reason, it's condensing them down into one line where I can't really read them. Sarah or Rosalinda, if you could read these questions, could you relate them onto me? Because the interface has squished them. I can't expand them out.
Sure. Let me pull them up here. Gotta stretch it out too. Okay. Okay. I've got, will this slideshow be available after the show? That's correct. It'll be on YouTube. We just need to encode it and post it. Can model dimensions be shown through a draft dimension?
Can model dimensions be shown through a draft dimension? Yeah, actually, I believe so. Let me see. Let's flip over and actually play around with that for a second. Let's say, for example, I want to unhide this. And Sarah, if you would mute your mic again, I'm getting a little bit of.
Oh, I apologize. Sure.
No problem. So let's say, for example, I want to show one of these model dimensions inside of another draft dimension. Actually, I've got a really good example of exactly how to do this whipped up as well. Let's go in here, and I've got a simple drawing here with a couple of drawing notes, and I want to put in, and this is going to be very improper, so please don't critique my performance here, but let's say I'm going to put a draft dimension right here, just this overall block width, and I want to put one of these other, let's say we'll grab one of these other dimensions and throw it in here. If I grab this guy, okay, so grab this guy, properties, and I want to insert an annotation from the, let's say, the top view, the front view here. D13 or D11 should be the depth of my counter bore over here from my previous experience with this model. And I want to insert this data in here, so we'll just type into the note critical dimension with regards to ampersand D11. And you'll notice, in this case, I need to actually bring it up over here. It actually pulled that 0.75 model dimension into the draft dimension. So I've got that pulled in there. Okay, so I figured out how to expand my questions out here, Sarah. Okay, let's see here. We got a couple other questions. Let's see. Okay, so I think the next question was kind of a spin-off of that. If I didn't answer that, then we'll get to, I'll get back to you on that later. In your AutoBOM, how are parameters selected? So let's go back to that example as well. So if I pull up that tables 4 there, I'll go back to sheet 2. So when I did my bill of materials, if I put multiple things on here, and we'll actually do this, let's go to another drawing over here, and let's insert another drawing model into this. I want to add a model, and let's just grab that assembly, that robot arm assembly, and let's place a general view on right here, and we'll say front view. And yes, this is very improper. I'm just, so don't critique me too bad. Don't think I'm a bad modeler because I'm doing this. And I want to, let's say, actually I've got an exploded view in here as well. So let's say exploded view A. And I want to then insert a table. So let's say I'm going to go to my Tables tab, and I'm going to Table from File. I'm going to pick, in this case, that should be BOM table.tbl, and I place this one in. You'll notice that this one was already created, so the workflow was I created an exploded view, then I created a BOM table, then I inserted another drawing model, of a completely unrelated model, and then with that model active, so over here if you notice I've got robot arm assembly and valve.assembly. With robot arm active, I insert another bill of materials table from file, then if you notice base, base 2, grip, hand, lower, and upper, those do apply to this, whereas arm, body, bolt, cover, plate, and shaft all apply to this. Now when I come in and say create balloons all, it's going to prompt me select a region. So I've already put them over there. If I click here, then it'll put them over here. So I pick which table basically, kind of very similar to the way we used to have to specify which repeat region we were using in Wildfire 4 and previous versions. So hopefully that answered your question there. Let's see. Can the right-click menu that changes with the ribbon picks be modified to custom settings? As far as I know, that's not the case. If I come across anything to that, I've got your info here. I'll shoot you an email. I'll look, but I'm 95% certain you cannot customize the right mouse click options. Then is there a way to reference the balloon number parameter in a note? Yes, there is. That's more complicated than I can tell you in 2 minutes, unfortunately. But yeah, if you want Rodney King, I can get with you later on that. Assuming your contact information is correct. If not, feel free to at this time type in the question, into the questions your real email address or phone number, and I'll get back to you on that one. Will GTOLs also be shown in a draft dimension? So GTOLs can be done 2 different ways. Just like model versus draft, GTOLs can be done model versus draft as well. I'll be perfectly honest, and this is probably a bad on my part, but I still kind of like doing most GTOLs as draft dimensions, which is not necessarily proper. I'm just faster that way, so I still do them that way. Oh, and then the last question I've got, how do you find drawing options? Okay, so I'm going to go drawing options. If I go under File, You might be tempted to click on options but that will take you to your configuration options or your Creo options. Your drawing options, however, are going to be found under File, Prepare, Drawing Properties, and this will bring up the place where you can open up that detail file, just like you could in previous versions of Pro E. Okay, so Rodney, I see your contact information. I'll get back to you, Rodney, on the bomb balloon number parameter. With that, it's 1 o'clock. Let me pull up this last slide here and just go ahead and show you guys. My contact information, Brad Heiser at brad.heiser@cdt-bw.com. There's my cell phone number. If you have any questions or ideas as relating to webcasts, Sarah McColligan is she's taken over this from Rosalinda, so she's going to be the person. If there's something specifically you want to see, if it's not something we can do here at CDT, we get PTC guys in occasionally, direct applications engineers that do demos for us, and her contact information is there. Also, if you have anything about training, like I mentioned before, any custom classes you want configured, or there's something you don't see on the schedule that you want to see, then contact Rosalinda there at the bottom of the slide. So with that, it's just after 1 o'clock. I apologize for going 1 or 2 minutes over. I appreciate everybody coming in and taking a look at this today. Hopefully you found something useful. We're going to put this on YouTube later, as well as all of our other YouTube videos, so feel free to check those out. And I appreciate you joining us. Sarah, do you have anything else to add?
I did send everybody a message because Vincent had asked about the link, but there it is at the bottom as well if you missed that for the YouTube. Okay.
Yes, there it is. Okay, well, with that, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and we will see you guys again next week.
The